They condemned him to death for asking questions. His crime wasn't theft, murder, or betrayal. It was forcing the powerful to think. In the year 399 BC, Athens, the birthplace of democracy, executed the wisest man in the world. His weapon, words; his sin, the truth. This is the story of the philosopher who chose to die rather than stop thinking, and whose death forever changed the destiny of Western thought. Before I reveal why Socrates refused to save himself, let me tell you something that's going to blow your mind. The most influential philosopher in Western history never wrote a single word. 0 books, 0 treatises, 0 manifestos. And yet, 2,400 years later, his name is in every university in the world. How is it possible that someone who left nothing written became immortal? The answer lies in what he did that day in the Agora of Athens. But first, you need to understand who this man really was, because Socrates wasn't what you imagine. Born around 470 BC, son of a stonecutter and a midwife. Short, stocky, flat nose, bulging eyes, prominent belly, nothing like the statues of Greek heroes. His appearance was so peculiar that his disciples joked, "He looks like a drunken satyr." But before philosophizing, Socrates was a soldier. And not just any soldier. During the Peloponnesian War, he fought in 3 deadly battles. At Potidaea, according to Plato, he saved Alcibiades' life by carrying him on his shoulders while arrows rained down around them. While others fled in terror, Socrates walked calmly, as if strolling through a park. At the Battle of Delium, when the Athenian army was massacred and a chaotic retreat began, Socrates retreated walking slowly, observing everything with absolute serenity. Even his enemies respected him so much they didn't dare attack him. What does this tell us? That this man knew fear. He knew death. He knew blood. And he had decided that none of that mattered as much as the truth. But everything changed when his friend went to the Oracle of Delphi and asked something that would alter the course of Western philosophy. Wait until you hear what the Pythia answered. His friend Xenophon traveled to the Oracle of Delphi and asked the priestess, "Is there anyone wiser than Socrates?" The answer shook Athens. No one. When Socrates found out, he was bewildered. According to Plato, he thought, "How can I be the wisest if I know nothing?" And then he did something brilliant. He decided to test the oracle. He went to interview everyone in Athens who was considered wise, politicians, poets, craftsmen, generals, and he discovered something terrifying. They all believed they knew a lot, but in reality, they knew nothing. They spoke with authority about subjects they didn't understand. They filled their mouths with empty words. And then Socrates understood the oracle's message. He was the wisest because he was the only one who admitted his ignorance. "I only know that I know nothing." This phrase sums up his entire philosophy. True wisdom begins by admitting what you don't know. But Socrates didn't keep quiet about this discovery. He did something much more dangerous, something that would condemn him to death. What did he do? Wait until you see his method. Socrates didn't give answers. He asked questions, and that was his greatest threat. His method was called maieutic, the art of giving birth to ideas. It consisted of asking questions until his interlocutors discovered the contradictions in their own beliefs. Imagine the scene. An important politician speaking in the agora about justice. Socrates approaches, looking innocent, and asks, "Excuse me, friend. You say that justice is giving each person what they deserve, correct?" "Of course." "So, if a friend asks you to return his sword, but he's gone mad and wants to kill someone, Is it just to give it back to him? Uncomfortable silence. The crowd watches. Well, in that particular case, so justice is not always giving each person what they deserve. Or is it? The politician stammers. His mask of wisdom falls in front of everyone. Socrates hadn't stated anything. He'd only asked questions. But he had destroyed the politician's credibility. And he did this all the time. With sophists, with generals, with priests, with anyone who claimed to be wise. The Athenian elite began to hate him because Socrates had a power they couldn't control, the ability to make anyone look like a fool using only questions. But the worst was yet to come. The young men who followed him began to imitate his method, and some of them would become the most dangerous men in Athens. Socrates didn't charge for teaching. He spoke with anyone. But naturally, young aristocrats with free time became his most devoted followers. Among them, Plato, Alcibiades, Critias. Some became immortal philosophers. Others became bloodthirsty tyrants. Alcibiades betrayed Athens multiple times during the war. Critias led the regime of the 30 tyrants, a brutal dictatorship that in just 8 months murdered more than 1,500 Athenian citizens. Was it Socrates' fault? He always denied it. I teach nothing. I only ask questions. Each person chooses what to do with the answers. But to Athens, the connection was obvious. Socrates was corrupting the youth. He was teaching them to question. And a young person who questions everything is a dangerous young person. And then came the moment everyone was waiting for. Athens had just lost the most devastating war in its history. The city was broken, humiliated, looking for scapegoats. And they looked directly at Socrates. Year 399 BC. Athens had lost everything: its empire, its fleet, its walls. Sparta had imposed a puppet government that massacred citizens. When democracy was restored, the city needed a scapegoat, and they found the perfect one. That ugly old man who for decades had questioned the leaders, influenced young aristocrats, and taught distrust of everything: authority, traditions, even the gods. 3 men brought charges: Miletus, a mediocre poet; Anytus, a wealthy politician whose son followed Socrates; and Lycon, an orator from the establishment. The formal accusation: Socrates commits a crime by not recognizing the gods of the city and introducing new divinities. He commits a crime by corrupting the youth. Proposed penalty: death. 2 charges, both absurd, both deadly. Socrates was 70 years old. He could apologize, beg, promise silence. But when he stood before 501 judges, he did something no one expected, something that would seal his fate. What did he do? What comes next is one of the most brilliant and suicidal defenses in history. According to Plato, who was present, Socrates didn't apologize. He didn't beg. He didn't plead. He did something much more dangerous. He told the truth. I will not change my way of living even if I have to die 1,000 times. He explained that his mission, given by the god Apollo, was to awaken Athens from its ignorance. That he was like a bothersome gadfly that stung the state's horse to keep it alert. When they asked if he acknowledged any crime, he responded with devastating irony. If I have corrupted the youth, where are their parents to accuse me? And if I don't believe in the gods, why have I always spoken of my daimonion, that divine voice that guides me? But then he went further. If you let me go free on the condition that I stop philosophizing, I will reject that freedom. An unexamined life is not worth living. The room was in absolute shock. 280 votes, guilty. 221 votes, innocent. guilty by only 59 votes. But the trial wasn't over. According to Athenian law, both parties had to propose a penalty. The accusers proposed death. Socrates had to propose something reasonable to save himself. Exile. A fine. Something. What did he propose? Wait until you hear it. Socrates proposed this. Given that I have dedicated my life to improving the city, I propose that I be maintained for life in the Prytaneum, fed at the state's expense, as is done with Olympic athletes. It was a total mockery, a direct provocation. He was saying, I'm not a criminal. I'm a benefactor. You should honor me, not kill me. The judges were outraged. They voted again. 360 votes, death. 141 votes, acquittal. 80 judges who had previously acquitted him now voted for his execution. Socrates had sealed his fate with his own tongue. But the most shocking part wasn't the trial. It was what happened afterward. For 30 days, Socrates waited in prison. And during that time, something happened that would change the history of philosophy forever. Normally, executions in Athens were immediate. But the trial coincided with a sacred pilgrimage to Delos. During that period, the law prohibited executions. Socrates had 30 days in prison. His friends visited him daily, and according to Plato, Socrates spent the time philosophizing, conversing, laughing, as if death were just another topic of conversation. Until one dawn, his friend Crito arrived with a desperate plan. Socrates, everything is ready. We've bribed the guards. I have a horse waiting. We can get you out tonight. No one will know. Crito pleaded. If you die, people will say your friends abandoned you, that we did nothing. Socrates listened in silence, and then he asked the question that would define his legacy. Should we do what is right or what is convenient? Crito didn't know what to answer. Socrates continued. If I escape, I'll be admitting that the laws are unjust. But I've lived my entire life under these laws. I've accepted their benefits. I can't reject them now just because they don't favor me. Then, in one of the most beautiful passages in philosophy, he imagined that the laws of Athens themselves spoke to him. Socrates, didn't we give you a homeland? Didn't we protect you? Didn't we educate your children? If now an unjust jury condemns you, the fault is not ours, but of men. Will you flee from us? Crito wept, but he didn't insist anymore. Socrates had chosen death. Why? Why would a 70-year-old man reject freedom? The answer lies in his final hours, and in his last words that no one fully understands to this day. On the day of execution, his friends arrived early. They found Socrates with his wife Xanthippe and his 3 young children. Xanthippe was crying inconsolably. This is the last time you'll speak with your friends. Socrates, with tenderness but firmness, asked that she be taken home. He wanted to spend his final hours philosophizing. His disciples asked him, "Master, what happens after death?" Socrates responded calmly, "If the soul is immortal, there's nothing to fear. If it's not, death is like a dreamless sleep. Either way, what is there to fear?" He argued that philosophy is, in essence, preparation for dying, because to philosophize is to learn to separate the soul from the body, the eternal from the temporal. One of his disciples, with a broken voice, asked, "What if the gods punish you for defying Athens?" Socrates smiled. "I've lived seeking the truth. If the gods punish those who seek truth, they're not worthy of worship." At dusk, the jailer entered with the cup of hemlock. He had tears in his eyes. You are the noblest man who has passed through this prison. I know you don't blame me." Socrates reassured him. "Do your job, friend." He took the cup with a steady hand. His friends were sobbing. Socrates looked at them. "What is this? Can't we die in peace?" And he drank the hemlock in one gulp. He walked around the cell until his legs went numb. He lay down. The poison rose from his feet, his knees, his belly. When the cold reached his chest, he uncovered his face and spoke his last words. "Crito, we owe a rooster to Asclepius. Pay it, and don't forget." Crito responded, "It will be done." "Is there anything else?" Silence. Socrates had died. Plato wrote, "This was the end of our friend, the wisest, most just, and best man we knew." Why did Socrates ask to sacrifice a rooster to Asclepius? Asclepius was the god of medicine. In Greece, when someone was cured of a disease, they sacrificed a rooster. Socrates' last words were a final irony. He was being cured of the disease of life. But there's a deeper meaning. For centuries, philosophers have debated. Did Socrates hate life? Was he a nihilist disguised as a wise man? Nietzsche harshly criticized him. Socrates taught men to hate life and love only reason. But others see something different. A man giving thanks for having lived. Because without life, with all its pain and contradictions, there would be no search, no philosophy, no growth. Socrates didn't fear death. He feared a life without meaning. And that's the real question. What's worse, dying or not having really lived? But here's what Athens didn't understand. By killing Socrates, they didn't silence him. They made him immortal. And what happened next changed Western civilization forever. Why did they really kill Socrates? The accusations, impiety and corruption, were pretexts. The truth is that Socrates represented everything an insecure society fears. Critical thinking, irony in the face of power, the freedom to question. Athens was broken after losing the war. It needed unity, not questioning. It needed obedience, not philosophy. As historian I.F. Stone said, Athens killed Socrates because it couldn't bear the mirror he held up to them. If Athens had let him live, today he'd be just a footnote, a forgotten eccentric old man. But by killing him, they turned him into a martyr, into a symbol, into an immortal idea. Because when you kill a man, you silence his voice. But when you kill a man who represents an idea, that idea becomes eternal. Plato dedicated his life to writing about him. He founded the Academy. Aristotle built his philosophy on Socrates' foundations. The Stoics adopted his courage. Christians saw him as a precursor to Christ. Even today, every time someone asks, why? Every time someone challenges authority with arguments, every time someone chooses truth over convenience, there is Socrates. 3 immortal lessons. 1. Truth is more important than life. Socrates could have saved himself. He chose not to, because a life without authenticity isn't life. 2. Wisdom begins by admitting what you don't know. I only know that I know nothing. In an age of fake experts, this humility is revolutionary. 3. An unexamined life is not worth living. Are you living according to your values or according to what others expect? If today were your last day, could you say you've lived with truth? Or have you been postponing being who you really are? Socrates taught us that the worst crime isn't dying. The worst crime is not having lived. 2,400 years ago, Athens believed that by killing Socrates, they would silence his questions. They didn't know they had just created the most influential philosopher in history. His death wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of a revolution of thought that forever changed civilization. Unlike Socrates, you still have time. Use it wisely. If this story made you reflect on the power of ideas and the courage to defend truth, share it with someone else. And if you want to keep discovering fascinating stories, subscribe to the channel.